Campus Catalyst. This is the first podcast series recording that we're doing. Warm welcome to Prashanth. Prashanth, he's from Deloitte. I'll actually introduce you, Prashanth. Any welcome words before we start off?
No, thank you for having me, Ravi. I think it's a fantastic initiative that you've started, and more power to you.
Thank you so much, Prashanth. So apart from Prashanth, we have Gautham V V from University, Bangalore. Banashri from Manipal Academy of Higher Education, and Soham Kulkarni from Symbiosis Institute of Technology. So coming to the introduction for the audience as such, Prashanth is a senior leader who has over 2.5 decades of experience in AI, data analytics, and engineering leadership. He's actually led large-scale growth and transformation, including building practices at Deloitte and KPMG from scratch into significant revenue drivers. He has deep exposure to telecom, BFSI, tech, and retail, advising and implementing AI across complex sectors. And his career spanning entrepreneurial roles, metrics line founding team, big consulting firms, showing a blend of startup and corporate scale. He's got a track record of CXO level engagement, global delivery, and creating next-gen solutions, and a grounding in product management, business development, and engineering. So that's Prashanth Kaddi for you. Gautham, as I said, he's from University, Bangalore. He's a third-year BCA, studying his BCA there. Banashri from Manipal Academy, and she's doing her cyber physical systems BTech third year. Soham Kulkarni from Symbiosis Institute of Technology, again third year, specialization in AI ML. He's doing his BTech. So yeah, that's the campus fresh grads as well as Prashanth's intro for you. So Prashanth, we have three topics for you. So this basic Campus Catalyst series is actually divided into two segments. The first segment is where I ask you three questions for three different themes. And the second segment belongs to the campus grad. So they actually ask you two questions each. So typically that's how it's bifurcated. So the first one is on scaling AI from vision to value. And the context basically is that you actually built and scaled AI and analytics practices across diverse industries and geographies, bridging the gap between technology, potential, and business outcomes. And many companies start AI initiatives with great ambition, but struggle to translate pilots into sustainable value. So given the context, what are the most critical success factors you observe when moving AI from experimentation to scaled impact in large enterprises, Prashanth?
Thanks, Ravi, for having me. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you guys. Look, this is a question that has been there forever in terms of, people start with great fanfare, but within a year, they're asking, why they're spending all this money and effort and where it's getting them, right? So there are a few lessons that we've learned, along the way, maybe in the past 20 years or so, trying to do this with large clients. The first one is to get alignment on the strategy of the company, right? So, for example, there could be a one-line statement saying the company's problem is that revenue growth is plateauing, it's not growing. And then you will need what we call a business translator typically to translate that into an analytics or an AI problem, right? So it could be because of market conditions which are changing, pricing power which is changing. It could be because customers are attriting, so there is challenge in sort of sustaining and growing revenue.
Yeah.
It could be because they're unable to deepen relationships with customers, right? So it could be multiple reasons. So having figured that out, and that points to basically saying what is the alignment to the strategy, right? So it could be not just revenue, it could be cost, it could be asset utilization, it could be employee or customer engagement, it could be multiple factors. Now, and that's what we say use case identification and prioritization, right? Yeah. The second sort of very critical aspect is also looking at ensuring that we identify the right techniques, right? We don't need to use AI for everything. We don't need to have a cannon to kill an ant. So we need to identify what we need to do. AI is expensive as a solution when you look at running costs over a period of time. So on the ladder, if you can solve it with a descriptive piece or a dashboard with reasonably not too much gains in actually implementing data science or machine learning, AI, etc., then you should ladder it as such, right? So at all times, uh, that has to be kept in mind. The third thing is always, once we start, we look at scale, right? So how do we scale it? How will it be sustainable?
Hmm.
Right? If there is decay in the levels of accuracy or the levels of utilization, etc., so then there's a significant problem in being able to continuously harness the value of the solutions that we've built, right? So as we like to say in common language, like the squeeze has to be always worth the juice, right? So the ROI has to come out of everything that we invest into this, right? So and because we work significantly in the consulting industry with Indian clients, this value lens is very, very significant, right? So if I spend 100 rupees on the solution, how am I going to make 1,000 rupees out of it, right? It's a lens that every business leader is using very constantly.
Yeah.
And last but not least is aligning business stakeholders, right? So we can create the greatest solution in the world, but if the people who need to, so for example, let's say we are scoring customers for who's most likely highest propensity to actually buy a product. If the sales or lead generation, lead conversion teams are not using that output, then it's useless, right? So therefore, how do we get them on board? But remember, that person's bonus depends on whether they do good sales or not if the model's fit is great or not, right?
Yeah.
So we need to sort of empathize or wear the shoes of that person and see how this solution will be useful to them. So bring them up front as well and make sure that they adopt, change their day-to-day ways of working and how they go about doing regular stuff, right? So that's very critical to get them on board. So I think these would be like 3 or 4 things that and of course continuously monitoring this, right? So that
Hmm.
it's aligned to conditions change year to year, leaderships change, things keep changing, but how do you keep aligned to these programs? So these are generally characteristics of very successful AI programs that we have seen uh,
Good.
in particularly in large companies.
Great, great. Thanks so much, Prashant. Very revealing there. Uh, Now, looking at leadership mindsets in technology transformation, context is that from founding teams to leading practices in Deloitte and KPMG, your career spans both entrepreneurial agility and corporate complexity. Now, this journey requires a unique mindset to lead teams, influence stakeholders, and navigate uncertainty. The question, Prashant, is what leadership qualities or ways of thinking have helped you the most in driving large-scale technology transformation while keeping teams engaged and clients trusting your vision?
Well, that's a very important question and one in which there's a significant value, right? One of the problems that we find in and what has really helped me in a very short, in a nutshell, is the entrepreneurial mindset, or even in large companies or firms, right? Fundamentally, it's because it's hard to get things done, and that getting things done is an important aspect of how you go about it, right? So the mindsets are 2 or 3, right? So one first, and maybe one of my early bosses told me this when I was in a large company. I was in a bank actually, and my boss's boss also said, you need to think of your own P&L, right, or profit and loss statement, right? What do you get versus what do you give?
Yeah.
It's a very philosophical and question if you actually get down to it, but you need to constantly think about that as a professional, because sometimes we get into this mindset of that we are entitled to things from companies, from firms, from our employers, but what we do, I mean, and I find so many people who come and say, so what do they want to achieve in the next few years is learn this, learn that. I mean, which is fair. Learning is what they're doing, but how are they contributing to the business, right? Because eventually, firms and companies are running businesses, right? And that needs to run. So that's the first thing. Like, how do you look at your own P&L, right? Second, very importantly, is to roll up sleeves and get to the most important things, right? and do it for purpose. So, for example, and if whether it's small or large corporations, people will align if you have something specific, right? If it's
Mm.
just for generic, theory, nobody's going to really be very excited about it. For example, I was a pretty junior or a mid-level person when I actually joined consulting,
Mm.
and I had to make some changes in the HR policies and including compensation, etc., because we were doing a differential sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And I actually, because I was passionate, and I think there was value, I started delivering on getting quick wins. That's another important mindset,
Yeah.
right? To show indications that it will work. Uh,
Mm.
I could actually go to the head of HR of the entire firm and then actually have a conversation, right? I mean, and there was no need for that to happen. But things will happen, whether it is large or small organizations, whether they are more structured and bureaucratic or less.
Mm.
If you have a specific plan and it's not generic, and it's not like we say in MBA type presentations. Secondly, you have some proof points to say that it will work and that you are the right person to do it, right? That you will make it work.
Absolutely.
Because that's a challenge that often happens, right? So, but eventually, when you have large teams, you need to look at it very differently. I usually like to take an aircraft analogy. So,
Mm.
you have to plan very well. You have to have a flight plan. You have to have everything. Then you have to have backups and stuff like that. I mean, pilots can get sick. Things can happen. You have to train well. You can't suddenly pilot it.
Mm.
You have to go down the runway. Certain speed you have to take off. Otherwise, you'll hit the wall. I mean, there's actually a specific speed apparently in aviation. And once you take off, there is this aviation thing that they say to aviate, communicate, and navigate, right? So, or aviate, navigate, and communicate. So, aviate is you have to keep stable. You cannot be always uh, in a uh, in a situation where you have too much turbulence. You have to navigate because you have to see where you get to the final destination, and you have to constantly communicate, whether it is with the passengers, with the ATC, etc., with all the stakeholders, because if they don't understand the articulation of your vision and where you're going, and they're not inspired, then nobody is going to, it's just a paycheck that one gets up in the morning and comes to. You're not going to get anything done, which is extraordinary.
Absolutely, Prashant. Thanks so much. I think had I been a student, I would actually picked up this example and used in the interview because that would actually impress the interviewer without. Great. Let's move to the next one, Prashant. This is on staying purposeful amid rapid innovation. The context is in today's climate, leaders often face the pressure to move fast and scale innovations, sometimes at the expense of long-term purpose and inclusivity. So students and early professionals often grapple with how to stay true to their values while delivering results. That's the framing. The question around is how do you personally stay grounded in a sense of purpose and responsibility? And what advice would you offer to those starting their careers in AI and analytics to ensure they don't lose sight of meaningful impact, Prashant?
So, look, the fact remains that what purpose and meaning is in life is a journey, right? And some of us, it may not be immediately apparent to us. It may be a journey we undertake, sometimes meandering, and it may take us a few years or a few decades actually to even figure that out, right? And some of us don't sometimes. So, but staying true to see, I think staying true. There are two parts I believe to this sort of area, right? So one is being true to your values, and that is basically not taking shortcuts and etc., right? Because I mean that's a value based grounding that we get in our lives, in our families, in our immediate circles, as well as as we grow into adults, what we think for ourselves. That's basic, in terms of whether you want to have a good night's sleep and how well how easy it is for you to have a good night's sleep. Purpose is slightly potentially complicated because it could have multiple aspects, because life's purpose and professional purpose could somewhere either be divergent or convergent, right? And one
Yeah.
has to figure this out as one goes through. So for example, just to give my own example, right? So obviously when I started, I wanted to build a world-class enterprise, world scale enterprise. We went through its own journey, had its own ups and downs. But what we never did was take shortcuts either with clients or with our people, right? So, and I think that was something that I was very particular about. Because at the end of the day, you may fail, you may succeed, but you know what kind of a human being you want to be as well, right? In As we go into larger teams, I think the best approach that I mean. So, for example, as over a period of time, I have figured out that possibly the what really keeps me going and gets me out of bed and into office every day in the morning, or some on a plane perhaps, is the fact that I enjoy helping people realize their potential, right? So I think which involves understanding an individual, figuring out what it is that they will enjoy as well as contribute meaningfully. So, right person for the right job. Power them. How do we give the platform, give the levers available to them, and empathize. Right, they will go through ups and downs. There will be challenges, and how to enable them. Right. So I think for example, that's something that I have figured out works for me. So that's, but that is individual that we need to figure out. I think any shortcut gains I have seen in my life, and maybe it's very philosophical, that anyone who takes shortcuts, who does one thing behind another's back, and is less than truthful, and all of the usual good stuff, right? Let's say the whole field of ethics doesn't end up being successful over the long term, right? It's not a recipe for success. The right path is where right means get you to the right destinations. This is my very strong belief, and how I live my life by as well. But that's what I think.
Thank you, Prashanth. So let's move on to the segment 2 now. So over to you, Soham, Gautham, and Banashri. Starting with Soham, then Gautham, and last Banashri.
Hi, good morning. It's really nice to have this opportunity. So my question is related to the skills that you need. Now, as somebody who has led global AI teams, what do you think are foundational skills, technical and non-technical, that are essential for students today?
Look, the most successful people who come into the workforce, have 4 or 5 things. Of course, they need to be able to. Our focus in education tends to be on coding and churning out code, but there are 2 or 3 other steps we need to perhaps think about. One is understanding the problem, right? In 2 areas. One is the problem class. So is it a classification problem? Is it a scoring problem? Whatever. What is the class of problem that we're trying to solve? And what is the problem that the end user is trying to solve? Right? Is it a recommendation issue? Is it trying to classify into A or B for following different paths? So what is the issue that we are trying to solve? Now, the reason for this is it helps identify the right algorithm, technique, etc., as well as be able to explain it back to the person who's going to use the output of that. Right? So I think that is one very critical thing. The other very important understanding is how will eventually the person who's going to use it, what are they going to do, right, with it? And for them, how do we make it sustainable, right? So is it like, how do you build a solution with a thing in mind that is going to run for 2 years, right? And therefore, how it needs to be stable, needs to ensure that it's scalable, etc., and it needs to be usable. Right? I think these are the 2 or 3. So a little bit of the domain or context, a little bit of the problem class or statistical foundations, sometimes in terms of what class of problems we're going to solve, and therefore for this particular instance, what is the right technique or the right algorithm to use. Of course, basic coding and being able to optimize, as well as how to keep it running for the long term, right? Both from a operate perspective as well as from a usability perspective.
Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. Moving to Gautam.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. The question that I want to ask you is that, sir, many students now feel discouraged from entering the AI field if they are not from a very strong math or coding background, sir. So, what advice would you give to those who bring creativity, storytelling, or system thinking, which are skills that are often underappreciated in the tech domain?
Yeah, my name is Kaddi or Prashanth, and I haven't been given a knighthood, so please don't call me sir. so, look, I finally when we go to the business of analytics, so there is this whole AI and the technology of AI, and there is the business of doing AI, right? Which is eventually, for example, in our business, why would a client sign a check for us to solve a problem for them? And that is all about whether understanding or articulating it back is all about storytelling and understanding what the why will someone trust so there's a very interesting analogy often that we use in our consulting practice, right? So there are the red people who are the technology people, and there are the blue people who are the business people. Now the red people are talking red, and blue people are talking blue. So how do you make these purple people who will be able to actually communicate both, and therefore understand what the blue people are saying, and then tell the red people what to do, and understand what the red people are doing, and tell the blue people how to sort of use it, right? And that eventually, what we call business translation, is going to be the single most important differentiator or between a successful and an unsuccessful project or initiative in this domain, in my opinion, right? And as AI takes over a lot of the doing the algorithms and etc. itself, this is going to become even more important, right? Because that's the skill. So while therefore going back, also understanding the problem and breaking it down, as well as storytelling, this is extremely critical. You cannot be a purple person who does not understand technology and how the technology works, right? It can't be a pure. I've seen a lot of people who come from particularly an MBA or other backgrounds, who have a mental block. They can't understand technology to the depth that they need to understand, because what expectations you set, what expectations you manage, how do you look at, how does a life, because most AI projects don't work in a linear way, right? It's not like, if you look at general software projects, you have 10 screens, you're predictable, screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, box 1, box 2. So it's like 10 weeks you can do this. AI projects, you might get in the 9th week an accuracy of 25%. Suddenly in the 10th week you'll get like 80, 75%, right? Anything could happen. It's non-linear. So understanding how the fundamentals work and being able to have that communication storytelling is exceptionally critical. But the person needs to understand enough of the tech and the process of how this is delivered.
Great answer there, Prashant. Thank you. Banashri.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Prashant.
Hello, Prashanth. I wanted to ask you about, see, I am deeply passionate about using AI and hardware in real life problems. In the race of innovation, it's easy to lose purpose. How do you personally stay grounded and be impactful to the work you're doing? And how can students learn from this?
Right. So I think there are two or three techniques that I use. Right. So one is to have a wide range of people that I interact with, not just other AI people and other business people, because often what happens is you tend to form that bubble and that echo chamber, and you believe that that is the truth, right? So it's very important to have a wide net of people that you interact with, right? I know as people are getting younger, they're more interacting with devices, with people at the end of them rather than actual people. But little old fashioned, maybe from a different era, believe in a lot of people to people interaction. The second is influences, right? So what you read, what you watch, what podcasts you follow, etc., etc. It sort of what they call deliberate thinking, right, or deliberate practice, which is you're thinking about what you need to do and how you need to do it, right? So that's I think the second trick. The third again comes back to I think maybe what Gautham was earlier asking or conversing about, or I don't remember if it was Soham about values and ethics, right? So eventually, you have to do what is right for your craft, right? So I mean, like so. Therefore, like I said, there are a lot of clients who are willing to pay for AI projects, but I say AI is not the right thing to do here, right? I mean, so because it just look, we're not just here for today, right? What eventually you have to be in the and increasingly in this world, what you say also becomes a matter of record. So so it's and there are only so many there is a reputation that you build for whether you are honest about your craft or you're not, right? So and that's very important. So right, I think these two or three, right, meeting various different classes of people from different, also economic classes, by the way, very important, and regional classes. So I was very lucky. I studied in what used to be called a regional engineering college at that time, the NIT network, where we used to have people from every corner of India, right? So that geographical comfort of dealing came long ago. But various classes, I mean, that's people influences on what you read and what you listen to, what you watch. But last but not least, staying true to your craft, right, and doing what's the right thing, because eventually the world is pretty small.
Absolutely, Prashant. I think for some time I thought I was actually listening to Pankaj Rai, because when it comes to networking, the wording also was actually very, very same. So guys, I mean, Pankaj Rai, close friend of Prashant, is friend of everyone in Bangalore. And he talks to youth a lot. I'll tell you this, and maybe then we'll go again with Soham's question. So Prashant, last year, I did one podcast with him sometime the first quarter of 2024. Now, then it was very revealing when he said that every Saturday afternoon, 2:30 to 3:30, is when he's going to talk to a new person in a restaurant close by home. So he walks to the restaurant, has chai over there, and another person is a new person. Just 1 hour spending with him, whatever, it can be career management or life management, it can be anything, but just 1 hour. Now, so every Saturday, all Saturdays of 2024, he did that. This year, when I was doing rather before the podcast, someone actually, some family friend based out of Bangalore said, this lady is having issues with career, and Pankaj's name popped up. So I pinged him saying that, can you please give one Saturday in the next 6 months? Then he said, Saturdays ka baat ho gaya, abhi to roj do kar raha hu. What are you doing, sir? Morning from home to office, it's a 1 hour travel. So he gives 25-30 minutes to a person who can actually talk to him. Evening office to home, again 1 hour, 1.5 hour, again half an hour, 45. So he's actually talking to 2 new people every day. So 60 people in a month span, and 16 to 12, you can actually multiply. So many people. And as Prashant said, it's not just into AI, or, he's not talking about it. He's talking about talking to people who are cross section of people, and the problems are different. For example, I was part of the incubation center at my university. So my 4 mentees were into 4 different ventures. He spoke to them. He opened up his network. And so much so that one of my mentees actually spoke to the EVP of Starbucks based in New Jersey. That is how it is, right? So I think a very, very important point that Prashant touched, Banashri, Gautham, and Soham, I think if you can learn this now, that importance of networking and the ability to be open to speak. And like Prashant was saying, he was in NIT, so people across India were part of his batchmates, right? So right from his Telugu guy to the North guy, and he's able to connect with them, and that actually is helping him very directly. He's actually saying that, so that's something which you guys can pick it up. Soham, go ahead with your second one.
Hi, thank you for your wonderful responses. We're learning a lot. So my question is about Gen AI. So what do you think differentiates successful Gen AI implementations from those that fall short, especially in terms of business alignment?
But that's a difficult question in a time that people are confusing GenAI with AI. So now a lot of people, AI is equal to GenAI, right? Particularly, right? So there was a Dan Ariely quote, which I can't quote here, but basically he was talking about teenagers and saying that, AI is like that. Everybody is talking about him. So everybody assumes that everybody else is doing something in GenAI, and everybody else is doing something in GenAI. And so they also say that I'm also doing GenAI, right? So 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 the problem is that, again, you have to take a very case by case approach on what value it will deliver, right? So if you look at GenAI, there are maybe 4 or 5 areas where it has made a significant difference, right? So one is what broad subject of summarization, right? So if you have a 10,000 page document, how do you summarize it? And there are some very, very good use cases, right? So for example, in a factory, if you have a manual of how to operate a assembly line, and there's a new guy who joins the assembly line, right? Or in a vehicle, if you want to have access a manual after you have had a breakdown. So there are some very, very interesting use cases. The second broad class is generation of content, right? Whether it is images, videos, text, etc., and what it can do for you, right? Whether it's personalization from a customer perspective, whether it is marketing optimization, whether it is digital marketing at a speed that you could not have done earlier without it, and so on and so forth. Right? The third class is on chatbots and what it can do, right? So basically, you don't need to look at training and thinking of collecting data 6 months to actually launch some solution, right? So I think that's one. The fourth thing is software development, right? I mean, itself. So from gathering requirements to more than coding itself, right? Or code generation is one aspect, but if you look at understanding requirements, documentation, then coding, then testing, then test data generation, then go live or deployment, and then maintenance or operate. So this is a very long cycle. So there are multiple areas where it can play a role, right? So these are some of the areas where, for example, in the field of data and analytics itself, right? Every company has some large companies in the world have 1,000 to 50,000 dashboards that they've created over time, which nobody even knows if they're all being used or not, right? And even if like 10% of them are being used or not. So we can have a chat interface with your data lake in some form or fashion, in a regulated fashion, right? So multiple types of things where GenAI has really figured out what can be a superior way of using. The most successful GenAI projects identify this upfront, clearly build an MVP or a POC, have a business case, right? This is most important, and architect it right? Because if you have 10,000 users who are chatting using a chatbot on something which is not worthwhile enough, right? So it's like it could be done by humans. In data science particularly, I say the same thing, right? So if like for coding you're using, like for an algorithm, for Python code you're using this as well, you might go to Kaggle. It might take like 3 or 4 extra minutes, right? But so there could be options that you use. Is it worth, for example, investing like millions of dollars to enable hundreds of or thousands of people on such a platform, right? So it's got to be always in that context. The single biggest pain point that most people have is ROI, because especially when you do an MVP or a POC, you don't understand or you don't see what it is. So sustainability, which is, can it really scale to integrate with systems and go on its own on an autopilot? And second is costs, right? So particularly on cloud, on GPU, the costs need to be understood very well, right? So these are the two things that determine. But after having understood the purpose, right? See, purpose is very important of what we are doing and why we are doing, right? Just to paraphrase what, on a different point, what Ravi was saying, what I found is networking without purpose is also useless often, right? So you network with a purpose of what it is that you want to achieve. And that's when you will get, both sticky audiences and results.
Absolutely, Prashanth. Thank you. Gautham?
Yes, sir. So the second question that I want to ask you is based on accountability in AI. So in domains like healthcare or recruitment, where AI can impact lives, how do you approach leadership accountability when some harm occurs? So especially it's a field where it's hard to pinpoint where the fault lies, whether it is with the developer, algorithm, or the organization.
Yeah, so I think there are more dramatic consequences in healthcare in autonomous cars, right? So, and that example has been just to sort of state that again for easy understanding, right? So, if an autonomously driven car crashes or has an accident with a car which is driven by a human, right? Whose insurance liability is it, right? Or two autonomous cars crash and both the humans who are sitting there are injured. What happens, right? So this is a complicated question. It's not a simple question, right? So obviously there are challenges. So the what you can do is two things, right? So how do you have a framework? Like how do you make AI trustworthy? And therefore, how do you have a framework? And some of those basic principles apply, right? So making sure it's transparent, it's explainable, it is unbiased, so fair and impartial, and you have a clear accountability. There is security of the data and so on and so forth. So the basic what we do for any whenever we use any algorithm, right? The other check that we typically do, the second is the guardrails and the monitoring that you approach, right? So, for example, the classic problems that occur, even in simpler problems, forget about this level of problems, but for example, credit cards continuously being denied to a particular race or a particular group of people, and therefore that can have legal implications, and so on. Healthcare, significant, right? If you tell someone you have cancer when they don't have, or you tell someone they don't have cancer when actually they do have, that's a train smash, right? So either way. So the third thing that we do is like ensure that wherever these kind of risks are involved, you have a human in the loop. Don't make it an autonomous system, right? So there is an expert who needs to sort of certify, right? So robustness, the first is make AI trustworthy, transparency, fairness, robustness of the data which goes into training, etc., etc. All right. The second is to have monitor these, right? So our accuracy is going down, which way is it going? Are there how many are like false positives are coming up, depending on the type of algorithm and what you're doing, right? And the third is to basically not AI is not so as it's AI working with humans. It's not a replacement entirely.
Perfect. Thank you, Prashant. Banashri?
Yes, sir. For students who may not see themselves as classical tech people, what should their mindset be? And in the role of innovation, where do you see students who are more into diverse thinking and unconventional thinkers?
Okay. So look, I mean, the best and the greatest achievers in the world have been often unconventional thinkers, right? Like, let's say Steve Jobs or whoever else that you want to think of, even in the business world, forget about the rest of the world, right? So, when they're coming into AI, see, obviously, as we go into AI, what makes AI more robust is also reducing bias, which involves getting multiple points of view when you form hypotheses, when you sort of ideate and think through what it is that the problem that can be solved. So that is and people who bring out of the box will make all the difference to people who don't think out of the box will follow. So it's the sort of the difference between management and leadership, as they say, right? So just managers do things right and leaders do the right things. So you need some level of out of the box thinking to basically differentiate from what everyone else is doing, both inside and externally, global, right? So there are 20 companies doing the same solution. Like, what is it that differentiates one company from the other? It can't all be just that the market for talent is also fundamentally largely similar, right? It's not that so essentially out of the box thinking that way is very critical. I have a particular bias towards original thinking, right? So when we take a problem, one of the things that I believe, like in our education system, we start to lose is original thinking. Like, what are we thinking that has not been thought of before, right? I mean, and on first principles, and that has really helped me in my own life, right? So because there is a lot of times you do things that you've never done before, right? So I went into a startup uh, at the age of 27. when I had no idea what needed to be done. And that was a product we were building. I got into consulting. I didn't know what really that was about. Now, over time, I lead a very large team, nearly 6,000 people. And I have, so that was never something that I've done before, right? And you have to evolve as a professional into how do you sort of, uh, think from first principles, right? These are not always obvious. You can't follow up. You can follow that, but you will not. I mean, so like they say, right? You do this, you can't do the same thing and expect different results, right? So if you want different results, you need to think and do differently, right? But you can't do that in a way that will detract from the goals and what needs to be achieved, right? Eventually, this needs to be a business that needs to run as well. So important to have out of the box thinking, but within a framework so that it's you continue to on the achievement path while you have these ideas which will contribute to it rather than detract.
Absolutely, Prashant. Thank you. See, on the fly, I was thinking something is missing in this series. I got segment 1 where I asked you questions. Segment 2, they asked you questions. But I felt segment 3 has to be there where you ask them questions. So please feel free if you want to ask any question to Soham, Gautham, or Banashri.
Well, so how do you guys see this whole now the whole Gen AI particularly that has come? Has it made any difference in how you go through your course, what you do, how much of it is practical of what you do, right? I mean, where you try and solve real world problems, and how much is the whole evolution of AI and Gen AI into this field actually helping you or not helping you, if I may
Good.
ask?
Anyone? Soham?
Vanish, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I have seen both when I've started my engineering without any AI support and now with everything I have in access. In the very first year, I didn't have so much access to AI and stuff. Now I reach for it because it's easier, it's convenient, and I have easy access to all the things I need, not running to textbooks for each and everything. It's very comfortable. And at the same time, I also understand there are very laid back things also say. Uh, so I need to cross check with things, but it's very comfortable to say.
So personally, what I feel is that AI has allowed our generation to learn anything we want instantly. So because of that, it's more about what you said. You have to have directed thinking. You have to know what you want to learn. It's not how many problems you solved anymore. It's what problems you want to solve and how you want to try to solve them. And because of that, it's sometimes overwhelming every day that there's this new model that we can try out or this new technology that we can use, but that's just the field, right? So it's also very exciting. And I feel that the current Gen AI boom, it might subside slightly because, as you said, the ROI doesn't always make sense, especially for the consumer use cases. Right now, we can see with OpenAI, it's not able to scale that well. But let's see what happens. You never know.
No, but with agentic, I think somehow there might be some interesting value
Definitely.
that might derive. Okay. So if I may ask another question, Ravi, see one
Go
very
ahead.
thing that I want to. So not in this, but in life, and what excites you? What will keep you motivated to sort of do something for the next 3 to 5 years?
Could you repeat the question?
What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? What motivates you to sort of, let's say, professionally do something for the next 3 to 5 years?
So I believe that we live in a country which is very fastly, like no longer a third world country. We're seeing with the rise and fall of other superpowers what we can do. And I believe that it's very possible in our country to make an impact. Just the way that people used to say that America is the land of the dreamers, India is now the land of the dreamers. So I want to be a part of that movement over the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. What about if I can request Gautam, Banashri, both of you also to chip in?
So I personally feel like we have a lot of opportunities nowadays, and as Soham has mentioned that now in our country, so I know that it's in fashion nowadays that people sort of denigrate the country and sort of leave the country for better opportunities abroad. But if all the people in this country who were allowed to quit the country, I think I would like to stay because I feel like it's part of a big experiment, and I would like to be a part of it. That's what I feel.
Okay.
Banashri, yeah?
So I am a person who is open to things. I'm no like I like to go with the flow, and I'm really looking forward to what I have an opportunity to do. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Back to you, Ravi.
Great. Thank you so much. I think it's kind of experimental if you really look at it. Okay, we do have some fixed questions that we asked, but I think the last 5-10 minutes was really good and fantastic answers by these guys. Really excellent, guys. I'm very impressed. So thanks so much for all of you. We this first episode again. I keep learning. Each episode is different. Each leader is different. So, and I can see a lot of the kind of words which you use again, Prashant. First principles is something which Pankaj uses every other sentence. I think you are so integrated together. I think best friends.
Let me give you a disclaimer. I meet him like 2-3 times in a year.
I know. I think the jugaad is so much key. The language also is the same. Sometimes I feel I'm speaking with Pankaj really.
Yeah, we're not getting it from the same source, that I can tell you.
Absolutely. So we did have a look at scaling AI from vision to value. One of the themes, leadership mindsets in tech transformation, staying purposeful amid rapid innovation, and the college students Soham, Gautham, and Banashri had questions around career, industry perspective, inclusion, and ethical leadership, and purpose and personal alignment. I think the last one again, on the fly segment 3 will be the normal feature from the next one, where the guest actually can ask questions to the kids as well. So thanks a lot, each and everyone. Prashant, thanks a lot for your time. Banashri, Gautam, and Soham, thanks for your patience. And you guys are, flying already, guys. I'm very, very impressed with you guys. Thanks so much. And I think we'll have an interesting guest again for the next one. And we'll have again 3 different universities and 3 different kids coming across. So yeah. Any concluding comments? Anyone? Prashant and anyone?
Thanks so much, Ravi, for this, and all the best, Banashri, Gautam, Soham, to you and